They laughed at him the second he sat down. Nobody in the courtroom recognized him. Why would they? He looked like just a janitor. Brown coveralls, scuffed boots, tired eyes, the kind of tired that don't go away. Not sleep tired, life tired. The courtroom was buzzing that morning. High-profile assault case, the kind the news likes to turn into a spectacle. Defense was weak. Prosecution was arrogant. Everyone expected a quick win. That's when he walked in, pushed open the heavy double doors with one hand, carried a faded mop bucket in the other. Everyone assumed he was just cleaning up before the session started. But instead of heading for his cart, the man walked straight to the front row and sat down, right behind the defense table. That's when the whispers started. Who is that? He lost? Is he allowed to be up there? He didn't flinch, sat upright, watching everything, quiet, focused, until the prosecutor turned around. Tall white man, mid-40s, slick suit, perfect fade. He grinned like he'd just spotted a clown at a wedding. "Sir," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I think the maintenance entrance is back there." He pointed without even looking. "We'll call you when we need the trash bins emptied." The courtroom chuckled. Even the clerk cracked a smirk, but the man didn't move, didn't blink. The prosecutor laughed again. "No disrespect, I just don't want you to get confused. This section's for legal professionals." The man leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and looked him dead in the eye. "And yet you're here." The laughter stopped. The prosecutor's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the bailiff stepped in. "Sir, you'll need to move to the back. This row's reserved for counsel and direct parties." The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "Seats open, public hearing, I'm sitting." "Sir," the judge's door opened. "All rise." Everyone stood. The man stood too, calm, centered. Judge Harper entered. Silver hair, sharp eyes. She scanned the room, glanced briefly at the front row, then opened the docket. No comment. The prosecutor leaned toward a colleague and whispered something. They both glanced at the man in coveralls and snickered. Everyone thought he was just another nobody, but nobody realized who he was or what he came to do. 10 minutes into the hearing, something was already off. The judge glanced at the defense table, then at the empty chair next to the defendant. She asked, "Where's appointed counsel?" The young man in the orange jumpsuit shrugged. Couldn't have been more than 19, thin, nervous, trying to disappear into his seat. The prosecutor stood, confident as ever. "Your Honor, court-appointed defense was scheduled, but no one's appeared on their behalf." Judge Harper frowned. "Clerk, did we receive any notice?" The clerk checked her screen. "No messages, Your Honor." "I can step in." The voice came from the front row. Heads turned. The man in coveralls had stood up, calm, hands behind his back like he wasn't surprised, like he knew this moment was coming. Judge Harper narrowed her eyes. "I'm sorry, who are you?" He took one step forward. "Micah Ford. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Georgia. I'm prepared to represent the defendant if the court permits." The room shifted. Tension snapped into place like a tightrope. The prosecutor let out a quiet scoff. "Wait, hold on. He's counsel? The guy in janitor clothes?" Micah didn't flinch. "That's correct." The prosecutor chuckled. "Is this some kind of publicity stunt? This man walked in here with a mop bucket." Micah pulled a Warren leather wallet from his pocket and flipped it open. Held it up. "Georgia State Bar. Active, verified. You're welcome to call and confirm." The clerk stood and approached, took the card, checked it, then whispered to the judge. Judge Harper stared. Micah Ford, Harvard Law class of 2013, clerked under Judge Mendez, passed the bar with distinction. The courtroom went dead silent. The prosecutor's smile cracked. "I'll allow it," Judge Harper said. "Mr. Ford, you may proceed as defense counsel." Micah stepped past the bar. Calm, smooth stride, no urgency, just certainty. The prosecutor recovered fast. "I'll be objecting to this representation as irregular." Micah turned to him without raising his voice. "Don't worry, I'll still beat you clean." Gasps from the gallery. Micah sat next to the defendant, motioned to the bailiff, "Please remove his cuffs. I'll be filing a suppression motion on unlawful detention grounds." The bailiff hesitated. The judge nodded. "Do it." Micah leaned in, whispered something only the defendant could hear. The boy froze, looked at him, eyes wide, lips parted. Micah gave a faint nod, then turned back to the judge. "I'd also like to place on record that the prosecution's initial arrest report contains factual errors. starting with Officer Medina's claim that the suspect matched a composite sketch from a case already closed 2 weeks earlier. The prosecutor's jaw shifted. "How'd you get public records?" Micah said. "The kind you stopped reading once you assumed he was just another kid from nowhere." The judge sat back slowly, watching. This wasn't going to be a routine case anymore, and nobody in that courtroom was ready for what was coming next. Micah stood from the defense table, calm, centered, hands in front of him like he was about to give a lecture. The prosecutor tried to hide his discomfort behind a smirk. "Your Honor, with all due respect, you've disrespected this courtroom 3 times already. Once when you mocked someone based on his clothes, twice when you assumed he couldn't belong here, and now a 3rd time by stepping into this trial without verifying your own evidence." The gallery murmured. The judge didn't interrupt. Micah turned to face the jury box. "I'd like to walk you through how we got here, and why it's not just a mistake, it's misconduct." He pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "Exhibit A, Your Honor, footage from the convenience store where the incident allegedly took place." The prosecutor stiffened. "That footage was not made available." "No, you didn't request it. The store owner keeps security footage backed up on a private cloud. I spoke with her this morning." He handed the drive to the bailiff. "Play clip 23, timestamp 11:48. The screen on the courtroom wall flickered to life. There it was, clear as day. The real suspect. Same hoodie, same build, but clearly not the defendant. Different shoes, no scar on the hand, and most importantly, leaving the store with someone else, not alone, like the arrest report claimed. The courtroom froze. Micah didn't blink. The prosecutor's key witness, the arresting officer, claimed my client was seen running alone from the scene. But in the footage, that's not my client, and he's not alone. He pointed toward the back of the room. "Detective Medina, you want to explain that discrepancy, or should I?" The detective shifted in his seat, suddenly far less comfortable than 10 minutes ago. Micah turned back to the jury. "This young man, this kid, was picked up a block away because he fit the description. Same build, same skin tone, and they ran with it." The prosecution opened his mouth, but Micah didn't let him speak. "And it gets better. Officer Medina claimed this case was flagged by a facial recognition alert. I pulled the body cam report. Want to know what wasn't running at the time of arrest?" He held up a printed screenshot. The recognition software had timed out 23 minutes before the stop. They used a tech excuse to cover profiling. Dead silence. Judge Harper cleared her throat. "Mr. Ford, I'm not done," Micah said, turning to face the defendant. He put a hand on the young man's shoulder. "This is my brother," he said flatly. "I haven't seen him in 5 years. We got split into different foster homes, different cities. I found him again because of this arrest." Gasps in the room. The judge's eyes widened. The prosecutor looked like he'd been slapped in the throat. "I work in this courthouse every day, not as a janitor. That's just the uniform. It lets me watch, learn, study. This system isn't broken. It's working exactly how it was built, to convict people who can't afford to fight back." He faced the jury. "But today, he's not alone. And I'm not here to be polite. I'm here to burn the whole lie down." He looked at the judge. "Move to dismiss all charges. Immediate release. And if this court doesn't take action against the prosecution for willful suppression, I will file with the Judicial Review Board myself." The judge didn't speak right away, just stared at him. Micah didn't blink. The silence after Micah's final words felt like a held breath. Judge Harper looked around the courtroom, then slowly leaned into her mic. "Mr. Ford, your motion is granted." The gallery erupted. The prosecutor looked like he'd been punched in the throat. "All charges against Elijah Ford are hereby dismissed with prejudice, and I'm ordering an internal review of the evidence chain, the arrest report, and the conduct of Detective Medina and the DA's office involved." The bailiff unlocked Elijah's shackles. The kid rubbed his wrist like he was waking up from a nightmare. Micah reached out. Elijah stared at him for a long second, then pulled him into a hug. You could feel it. The courtroom had no words left. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, I said you've had enough," the judge snapped. "I suggest you get your office in order before I do it for you." He sat back down. Micah didn't gloat. He didn't smirk.
He just turned to Elijah. "You're free," he said. Elijah blinked, overwhelmed. "Why'd you come back?" Micah exhaled. Because when they took you, they didn't know who they were really putting on trial. As they gathered their things, a woman stepped forward from the back row, press badge around her neck. "Mr. Ford," she said, voice low. "Been following you for months. I knew something was off when I saw your bar number buried in an old case file." Micah raised an eyebrow. "You followed me?" She nodded. "Court records, cleaning schedules, case transcripts. You've been here the whole time, watching, tracking patterns, filing quiet complaints under aliases." Micah didn't confirm or deny. "I just needed one moment to make noise. Now I've got it." She glanced at Elijah. "You just made a lot of people very nervous." Micah gave a faint smile. "Good." He turned back to his brother. "Let's go." They walked out together. No cuffs, no shame, just two brothers stepping past the same doors that nearly swallowed them both. Except this time, the system didn't win, and they weren't coming back the same way they entered. 3 weeks later, Micah was back in the courthouse, not in coveralls, this time in a fitted gray suit, briefcase in one hand, ID badge clicked to his chest. He didn't need to hide anymore. He walked past the same bailiff who once told him to move, past the clerk who laughed at him, past the judge's chambers, now under audit from the State Review Board. The janitor cart? Still there, but it was empty now. Because Micah hadn't been a janitor out of necessity. He chose it. After getting blackballed for exposing corruption at his old firm, no one would hire him, not as counsel, not as staff. So he worked underground, literally, in the very building that silenced him. Micah cleaned their floors, watched their trials, listened to their patterns, took notes, and waited until the system finally gave him a reason to speak loud enough that it had to listen. That reason? His brother. Moral of the story? Don't judge a man by his uniform. Don't measure power by status. And never assume the quiet one in the back came unarmed. Because the people you step on today might be the ones pulling your file tomorrow.